U.S. President Donald Trump's harsh words about NATO and the involvement of allies in Afghanistan sparked a wave of criticism. The accusations concern the alleged undermining of the alliance's purpose and belittling the sacrifices of allied soldiers. These are controversial statements, but their meaning is often simplified today. As analysts point out, Trump was referring not to soldiers, but to the structure of countries' involvement in military operations. In Afghanistan and Iraq, the United States bore the brunt of the combat operations, from the front lines, through aviation and logistics, to intelligence and technology. American forces were responsible for most offensive operations and mission security. European countries also participated in the operations, but often to a lesser extent. Trump was referring to this disproportion without, however, undermining the sacrifice of NATO soldiers.
We get along very well with NATO, I think, but I've always said, will they be there if we ever needed them? And that's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there, or we would be there, but will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that, and they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines, but we've been very good to Europe and to many other countries.
These words are harsh and undoubtedly controversial, but in terms of facts, Trump is talking about the structure of operations, not the value of soldiers. No one questions the courage and dedication of the soldiers of NATO countries who took part in combat missions. In Davos, this context was also emphasized by the NATO Secretary General, who openly admitted that pressure from Trump had a real impact on European defense policy. The Polish president also pointed to the scale of the imbalance in the funding of the alliance. The data is clear. The United States currently bears the greatest burden of maintaining NATO's defense capabilities. According to experts, this is the element that is most often overlooked in public debate. Criticism of Trump focuses on style, rather than whether his diagnosis of military funding and capabilities was accurate. American pressure regarding Donald Trump's policy, even the issue of increasing defense spending, it must be admitted that this was an excellent idea, and its implementation was also perfectly timed and woven into the events around us, where we can clearly see that more and more European countries are gradually increasing their defense spending to well above 2% of GDP. The second aspect of this discussion concerns the global projection of U.S. power. The U.S. maintains a military presence and security guarantees not only in Europe, but also in Asia and the Middle East. Trump has repeatedly emphasized that such a role requires real cooperation from allies. All of the countries involved spend less than the United States currently does. The Americans have over 50 defense alliances, purely defensive ones, that is, commitments in case something happens. No other country has such influence in relationships. This has been built up over decades, which is why the Americans are still a superpower. In this sense, the dispute over Trump's words is not about whether NATO is necessary or whether the sacrifice of soldiers was real. It concerns the question of how to share responsibility in a world where threats are becoming increasingly real. One can criticize Donald Trump's language and his way of communicating. However, it is more difficult to ignore the facts he refers to. Today, the debate about NATO is not a dispute about solidarity itself, but about how to realistically finance and maintain it.